Once again, welcome to our panel discussion tonight. My name is Joseline Nicholas. I am a local real estate agent and a full-time real estate investor. A little bit about me is that I bought my first property in 2014. My husband and I, at the time, were just dating and we had extra cash to put aside, so we decided to buy a property. We had no clue what we were doing. It was just something fun to do. So we bought that in 2014, and then a few years after, maybe 2 to 3 years after, we got married, decided to buy another, and we realized that we could actually build wealth, or at least secure our kids' financial future through real estate. So we started buying more and more, and right now we own a few properties in Guelph, Ontario. We have a few properties in Niagara and Kitchener-Waterloo as well. A little bit about my career is that I am an economist by education or by background. I went to school for economics, and I worked for the Ontario government as an economist for a little bit before I decided that real estate is my dream. Real estate is what I'm passionate about. So I transitioned from my economist job into real estate full-time, and that's what I'm doing tonight. So before we start, I'll give a quick market update just to give an idea of where the real estate market is today. And then we'll go from there. If there is any questions, there's a box, a question box down here below that you can type in your questions. We also have a chat area. You can put your questions there as well, and we'll make sure that those questions are addressed. So in the last year, the last 12 months, year-to-year appreciation across Ontario, we've seen about 10% appreciation on average in the GTA area. So this is Toronto, Scarborough, and surrounding areas. In Oakville, Milton, and Ottawa, we've seen about 18 to 20% appreciation in property values. In Hamilton, Guelph, Kitchener-Waterloo, we've seen about 25 to 30% appreciation in property values. And in areas like Barrie, Niagara, London, St. Thomas, we've seen about 30 to 35% appreciation in property values. In areas like Woodstock, Ingersoll, Tillsburg, and the rest of the cottage country in Ontario, we've seen between 35 and 40% appreciation in property values. With what this means is that if you bought a property in these areas, on average in Ontario, it's went up about 30% in the last 12 months, which is quite significant. Another slide that I wanted to show you is with investors, one of the things that we struggle with is finding deals. A lot of investors, even before I became a realtor, it was all about who can get me my next deal. So right now, I just wanted to show you the number of listings on the market. So this here on the left is a graph of what the numbers look like in 2017, just before the slight correction that we saw in 2017. So as you can see, the first bar is January, February, March, and we can see the number of inventory in the blue bars. That's the number of listings on the market, and the line here is the prices. So you could see that inventory was going up and up and up until we go to a point where there was enough inventory on the market. Buyers had more options, hence impacting the price. And we saw a little bit of market correction since then. And I'd like to bring your attention to this other graph on the right here. And this is what we're doing today in 2021. So the lowest number of listings were in December. And now we've been going up. This is January, February, and now we're in March. As an investor, this, at least for me, I find it as exciting because it means there's more options for me as a buyer. There's more options for me as an investor. So if you're looking for deals on the market, this is definitely something to make note of. If you've been looking for a deal and maybe it's time, but what is exciting is that now we're seeing more and more listings on the market. Now, I do believe that we'll definitely have a correction sometime in the next few months. Nobody has a crystal ball, but from what we can see in data, and as I said, my background is economics, and just looking at what other experts in the industry are saying is that there is a market correction coming. That is not a scary thing, at least for me as an investor. I don't see it as a scary thing. I see it as an opportunity. It's very hard to predict the market, and I don't even recommend it, but this is like one of those unique opportunities where we can see something coming, and as investors, we can capitalize on it. If there's any questions or anybody wants to know more about what the data is doing, this is basically the information. I'm happy to connect or answer any questions at the end of this webinar. Next, I would like to take this moment to introduce our panelists tonight. We have 3 amazing women who are doing amazing things in real estate, and I just want to take this time for us to learn more about their stories, what they're doing in real estate, and what they've done differently that we can all learn and implement in our real estate investing journey. To start, I have Limo. Limo is a real estate investor. She's a money expert, and she's been in the banking industry for the last decade. She's experienced in investing strategies, including rent to own, hard money lending, hard money lending, wholesaling, private mortgages, buy and hold, Airbnb, pre-foreclosures, as well as fix and flips. She created a passive real estate investing program where her students, give me one second here, where her students have 100% success rate of getting into real estate deals. She's known as the private lending queen of Canada, and she's the founder of LIMOR, of www.limor.money, and the YouTube channel LIMOR. Please welcome LIMOR Markham. LIMOR is there?
I am here. I'm here. For some reason, we can't get the cameras to work, so we're working diligently in the background, but I am absolutely 100% here. Thank you so much for having me.
No worries at all. Our next panelist is Sarah Larby. Sarah is a real estate investor, and she's a coach. Sarah recently retired from her 9-to-5 job in October, and so she retired after investing in real estate using the BAR strategy. The BAR strategy is the buy, renovate, rent, refinance, repeat, and she was using this strategy for the last 7 years. Her portfolio includes a mix of long-term and short-term rentals in Southern Ontario. Sarah is a speaker, she's a coach, and she's a mentor, as well as the host of 2 top-ranking Canadian real estate investing podcasts. Sarah was featured in the Globe and Mail, the Toronto Star, the Canadian Real Estate Wealth magazine, and the 1010 News Talk Radio. Please welcome Sarah Larby.
Thank you very much for having me here. I'm super excited.
I'm excited too. Our next panelist is Danielle. Danielle is a real estate investor and a realtor. She's passionate about helping others reach their financial goals through real estate. She fills her days operating multiple businesses, underwriting properties, balancing finances, managing rental properties, and endlessly educating herself. Her education and experience has blessed her a wealth of knowledge, which she's excited to share, and will reveal some tips she has applied in her business to help you increase your own portfolio. Please welcome Danielle Chanson.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me, Joseline. Excited to share with everyone.
No worries at all. No, it's a pleasure of mine to be hosting this podcast with you ladies. So now we will start our panel discussion. Limo, is your camera on now? What's happening there?
No, it looks like I'm gonna be. Hold on. Maybe start with someone else. Give me a minute.
Okay. No worries. I was just checking in. Maybe we'll give them a minute. Okay. So maybe we'll just start with you, Sarah.
We're gonna stick just with audio. Can you hear me, guys?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, wonderful. I'll promise to make up for it in energy and excitement.
No
But I
worries at
did,
all.
just so you all know, I did do my hair and I dressed up really nice and my eyelashes look beautiful. So just imagine the most glamorous version of me, and that's exactly what I look like right now.
Maybe we'll put your picture in the this. Oh, it's gone now.
Oh, we'll bring
Yeah, if
it
you
No,
put the slide back up
I was
the
just
picture,
joking.
then I know who it is.
Let's see if Sakshi can help us bring it back. So we'll start with you, Sarah.
Sure.
How did you get where you are today? What or who helped you along the way?
Yeah, I mean, so who helped me? A ton of people. I could not do this by myself. You have to build a team. You know, but how I got started originally, I mean, it was literally just taking action on one day Googling how do people create wealth and how do you retire early. And real estate kept coming back over and over. Started listening to some podcasts, started reading some books, and I saved enough money to buy the cheapest thing I could afford back in the day, which got me into real estate. Made a ton of mistakes. Didn't select the right tenant, didn't set the right rents, but it propelled me to where I am today. And I always stayed focused on the ultimate goal of being able to, like, you know, not have to work for 40, 50, 60 hours a week for 40 years to retire on 40% of your income, which is like the biggest scam in my opinion. But, you know, fast forward to today, you know, I started with buy and hold. Then I went into the BRRRR strategy. I'm still looking at that, but recently started acquiring some land to build. And my last purchase is 5 acres of waterfront land, and I'm going to be building a cottage resort of 15 cottages over the next couple years. So yeah, it's been fun.
Wow, that is amazing. And I think what I heard from you is it's okay to make mistakes as you're starting, because then over time you will learn and you will grow. I really like that. Danielle, the same question. How did you get where you are today, and who or what helped you along the way?
Well, everybody who had any belief in me is really who helped me along the way, because that kept me going when we did make those mistakes, and that self-doubt does set in, and we all go through that ultimately. But when you have a strong support network and you have a network of people that believe in you, and then you have people around you that you can lean on for expertise. So like the contractors that I had working for me, they were very patient with me and teaching me what I needed to know when I was doing the flips, and, you know, explaining why we were doing this and why we were doing that. The professional teams that I hired, I asked a lot of questions, and they also helped me along the way so I can understand the logistics and the semantics of what I was doing, and what I needed to do, needed to know legally. You know, like Sarah said, there's just so many people that you lean on. You just can't name everybody. But ultimately, everybody in my immediate circle was really my support when I needed them. When I had self-doubt, or when I had, you know, when I tripped and fell down, they helped me get back up, that sort of thing. So ultimately, I think they were my best support.
Wow, that is amazing. That is amazing. So I guess what I'm hearing from you is like having that dream team, and that no one succeeds alone.
Absolutely. Listen, I'm really, you know, it's one of the things I get really irritated about is when people say, oh, you know, I'm a self-made millionaire, I'm a self-made whatever. You're not. And, you know, you're lying to yourself. And ultimately, I think it's rude because you're not giving any credit to the people that helped you along the way. And so I think you got to keep it humble. You got to keep it real. And that's what's going to get you through the really hard times. And that's going to get you through those times when you do trip up and fall down, because, you know, it's okay. It's okay to trip and fall, and keeping it real. But, you know, help those when you're in a position to help them, and lean on those that can help you when you need it. Ultimately, you know, I think together better and definitely stronger.
Absolutely. I love that. I love that. Limo, are you here?
We
can see your picture now. I can see your beautiful hair, your makeup.
There you go. See, that's exactly how I look right now. Often working from home, my hair is like a giant pineapple on top of my head. So the more glamorous version is here. But Danielle, shout out to you. You are so right. You know, especially as women, you know, it's not about necessarily doing it all ourselves. And there are a lot of people who support us along the way and along the journey. But, you know, Joseline, to answer your question, you know, how did you get to where you are today? I would say the very first thing is I had a vision for a better, different, and more improved life. And that was tremendous motivation. You know, I came from the banking industry, and it's what drove me to read books and look for seminars and dedicate my evenings and weekends to wanting to create a better life and a newer opportunity. And so I would say definitely that's a big part of it. And for me, very early on, and I know every investor comes across education, comes across mentors, and some people, you know, do a little bit more of a DIY kind of approach to investing. But for me, from the very first minute, it was really important for me to invest in myself, invest in education, have mentors, so that along the way, as I needed support, as I had questions, I had people to turn to. And it wasn't people who were just kind of doing this as a hobby or had an opinion about real estate, because everybody has an opinion about real estate. These were people who had already accomplished my dreams. And so I knew it was worthwhile investing in myself to be able to have their support and get their answers. And then, of course, just like the ladies have said, you know, people in my life, like, you know, my mom and others who really truly believed that if this was my dream, I was destined to go after it.
Absolutely. I love that. And I can certainly relate to that. When I started, I was just, you know, my husband and I were just doing what we know works. But the moment we invested in coaching, invested in ourselves, our portfolio grew much faster and with much fewer mistakes, of course. My next question will come back to you, LIMOR, because I'll just be jumping around. But my next question is, what are the challenges you face in entering a male-dominated industry?
Okay, so I love that you asked this question. And here for me is kind of the irony in this question is that prior to becoming a real estate investor and expanding my portfolio and my vision of what I wanted to be, I actually spent 12 years in the banking industry. And you do not get more male dominated, maybe other than the tech industry, than the banking industry. So what's kind of ironic is that for me, moving from banking to real estate, it actually was very freeing. There were more females there. There were more females empowering their, you know, their feminine essence. I mean, when I was in the banking industry, it's kind of funny because all of these successful women who had gone beyond a director role, were making significant income, had clout in the organization, they all had a few things in common. You guys are going to chuckle, but they all had short hair, wore only blue suits, and they all had at least a handful of divorces under their belt. And, you know, as you can tell, looking around at all the beautiful women here, you know, we're in bright colors and long hair and embracing our feminine essence. So, you know, I really grew up in a space where in order to be successful in the banking world, they had this expression, you had to have these sharp elbows, which really just meant like you had to really show up at the table and make yourself heard. But what was really nice about shifting into real estate is compared to where I came from, this had a lot of collaboration, a lot of win-win, a lot of women supporting each other. And so for me, I really kind of went the opposite direction, and coming where I had come from, it really enabled me to embrace women and friendship and collaboration and win-win all the more. So, you know, I know everyone comes from a bit of a different background, but the opportunity to really see this as a chance to link arms and work together, it's a really special place.
Wow, that is amazing. Amazing. Danielle, what are the challenges that you face in entering a male-dominated industry?
Yeah, I might be the unicorn of that because I don't know that I had some challenges entering the male industry because I have a really strong personality. So I was never really intimidated by men, and I've never really, it's just never been a challenge for me. And in fact, here's how I feel about it, to be honest with you. I think it's mind over matter. So I had someone that was referred to me. We did a consultation call, and she was having challenges with contractors, and she was in the military, by the way, and she just felt that they didn't respect her because she was a woman and she was trying to lead the project. It was her flip, And I just told her, I think you need to get that out of that mindset that they're treating you that way because you're a woman. Maybe they're just trying to offer you different ideas, and maybe they're just trying to give you their opinion, and you're internalizing it thinking, you know, it's because I'm a woman. And I've never had that. I've just never had that mindset. So I've never had that challenge. So when, you know, when I get questioned from my crew or, you know, somebody that I've hired, I don't say, oh, they're trying to, you know, they're trying to put me down because I'm a woman, or they're talking to me like I don't know what I'm talking about. I've never really had that mindset. And she followed up with me about 6 weeks later, and she said, you were absolutely right. As soon as I kind of took that off the table, everything changed, like everything changed. And so I think part of it is just being, making yourself the victim, if that's fair. I'm not sure if that's the right way to say it. That might be a little harsh, but I think, you know, just kind of internalizing and taking things personal. But when you just look at it from, you know, pull yourself out of that. Because I think, you know, if you think that people are treating you that way because you're a woman, you're being emotional and you're taking things personal. And I think if you just take that completely off the table, I don't think it's an issue. Now, having said that, I also have a very strong personality. So I do think it would be much different for somebody who's a little bit more timid and quiet. That's not me. So to answer your question, Joseline, what challenges have I faced? I really haven't faced those types of challenges. That's been an issue for me. But I know some people have, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And it's very real.
Yeah. What about you, Sarah?
I mean, I do tend to agree with these women. I think it's more of a personality and just being able to be confident going through the process. But I actually look at it as a competitive advantage, right? I mean, for example, the podcast, I'm probably, at this point that I know of, I mean, maybe there's like one or two, but there's not that many women real estate investors that are podcasting. So in a way, you know, it's cool to be able to differentiate yourself a little bit. But I also don't, you know, unless you're dealing maybe with some trades, at some point you're going to build a team and they treat you equally. But your realtors, they can be men or women now. I think it's just probably a fairly close mix. Mortgage brokers, same thing. So, you know, there's the majority of the industry, like lawyers, they could be women or men, is probably not geared towards anything. I think it's actually a really cool competitive advantage. And, you know, I would say one of the things is like, because the industry is so small, it's really cool to see other women, and we start, you know, getting to know each other and hanging out. So like, could there be challenges? I mean, yeah, could there be a jerk, I don't want to swear on here, but a jerk that like treats you like crap? Like, yeah, they probably won't come back to my project regardless if they think that, you know, they should be able to treat a client that way. But and this goes back to your team is so important. And if your team doesn't respect you like they should, you know, whether you're a guy or girl or they're a guy or a girl, I mean, you gotta cut your losses and upgrade your team. And I think it's just how you take it. And maybe there's still some of that, as we said, but it is 2021, and I think people are coming around. You know, this is not 50 years ago where it was maybe a lot more new and women weren't as involved, but we're seeing it more and more. And even when I interview people, you know, they're you know, it's probably still male dominated, but there's still more women now, I think today, that are really, you know, taking hold of the finances and paying attention and, you know, being excited about this. And that's cool to see. So, but you know, if anything, let's use it as an advantage and a differentiator point and own it.
Yeah, I love that. I love that, and I'm glad that other women on this webinar can hear that and know that it's also like, I love what Danielle said about it's like mind over matter. Sometimes it's actually just in your mind that maybe these people are answering this way because I'm a woman, when it has nothing to do with you being a woman. I do agree with what you ladies have shared, and being in the industry myself, I couldn't agree more. My next question is, yes.
I just wanted to coattail on what Sarah said about, you know, having competitive advantage. I've actually, that kind of triggered for me. I've often said being a woman is just another tool in my investor toolbox, because when I need it, I do play the woman card, I'm not gonna lie. So I'll give you a quick example. I got the building inspector called on me on one of my renos, and yeah, I showed up like LIMOR said, you know, my rock star. I had my hair done, my nails done, my face done, you name it. And yeah, so I just, you know, when I need it, it's a tool in my toolbox. But other than that, that's all it's for me.
Absolutely, I love that. I love that. So Sarah, if you were to list 3 skills that you feel has helped you produce your top results, what would those be?
I think my ability to care more about things being done than perfect. I'm not a perfectionist. And to me, done is better than perfect. And that helped me take action on many things. And to, you know, and to learn from actually doing it physically. Well, I don't actually do the work physically, but to actually be in there and investing and doing it has helped. I think just like determination, right? I was determined that I wanted to retire from my job, and I didn't want to have the 40, 50 hours. And that was like always top of mind. And when things happen, hiccups happen, you know, I had to have that goal in my head. I had to remember that goal. I had to remember why I was doing this whole thing. And I think that determination and grit, or however you want to call it, is there. And then being resourceful. I know I don't have all the answers. I will never have all the answers. But who can I reach out to? Who would be the best person for whatever circumstance or situation? It could be a mortgage broker that you can reach out to. It could be another investor. But you know, and it could be just different tools. But how do you get to point A to point B by working with others, utilizing the resources around you? And I'll tell you that has helped me tremendously more than anything else, because if I don't know something, I know in my circle, in my network, somebody else has done it, can help me, and go from there. So I would say those are probably the 3 things.
I love that. I love that. What I love about what you said is done is better than perfect. I don't know if I could echo that enough, but I find even like some of my clients who are just like waiting for the perfect deal, and then 2 years go by and properties have appreciated 50%, and that could have been 200,000 in your pocket. But because we're waiting for perfect, and I love that you said that. I couldn't agree more. Limo, if you could list 3 of your top skills that have helped you achieve the results you've achieved, what would those be?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I've got 3 for you, but I know for all of us ladies, it's tough to come up with our top 3. The first one I would say is absolutely vision, which is wanting something, the ability to envision something that doesn't yet exist in your life. I mean, back when I was in the corporate days, and, you know, there were many years where I loved what I was doing, but as I neared the end and what became my final retirement and departure, I really started envisioning a better life, cash flowing opportunities, flexibility, being able to have control over my time. So vision is ultimately what painted that picture for me to have something to go after. The second one I would say is creativity, because there is nothing in real estate that is perfect or cookie cutter. And like Sarah said, when things come up, you just have to not give up, but say, hey, how can I do this differently? How can I bring in a new partner? Now, the strategy was intended to be a rent to own, but it's not working out. How do we convert it to a flip? What can we do? And I would say the more creative you can be, and obviously having fun with that creativity, the further you'll be able to go. Because sometimes I almost think of real estate investing as like a Tetris game. So imagine you're there, you're playing, and you know, you're furiously trying to figure out what to do with that piece that's coming down before you run out of time to make it fit perfectly. And then the third one I would say is tenacity. So similar to Sarah saying determination, things come up, it's not always a smooth ride, and you just, again, need to really be focused on the determination and the tenacity to go after that vision and that dream that you've painted for yourself, no matter what. And I mean, that applies to real estate, but applies to anything in life, right? We need to be focused on getting through the obstacles and more focused on the opportunity. So vision, creativity, and tenacity are definitely the top 3 skills.
Absolutely. I love that. Danielle, what are the top 3 skills that you feel have brought you where you are today?
Well, I think the first thing, I 100% agree with what LIMOR said. It takes a vision, but in order to obtain that vision, you need a belief. I know Sarah has a fire in her core. She's had that belief from the day I met her and long before I met her, and she has used that to really drive her forward. And LIMOR is the same way. You can have a vision, but if you don't have that belief, that power inside you to really make you push through the hard times, and the belief to know that I'm on the right track and I'm doing the right thing and I will get to where I intend to go, which is ultimately my vision. I think that is really the coal in the engine. You know, your train isn't going to go if you don't have any belief. And you know, and again, coming back to your first question, you know, when you do trip and fall and have some self-doubt, that's when you lean on your support system to kind of throw some coals on that fire for you to say, hey, you know what, you're still in it. You're not down. This is just a hiccup. So really the belief, your core beliefs is what's going to lead your actions. It's what's going to drive you into what actions. I mean, you select what actions you take based on your belief system. So I really think belief is number one. And belief in yourself, truly. Belief in that you can get there. That is really what it boils down to. So it's all the mindset. Like anybody on the panel here will tell you, mindset is first. And it starts with the belief in yourself. So that's, to me, that's number one. And that's the only one that matters, but I'll give you a couple more since you asked for 3. I think the ability to be fluid, so to be able to pivot. Listen, COVID happened. We didn't all crawl up under our shells and, you know, under a rock and said, oh my God, what's going to happen? And poor me. You know, we were all resilient, and we pivoted our businesses. We were able to be fluid and say, okay, we need to shift. Like I happen to know Sarah is one of the founders of the Right Club, and she's had to make a huge shift with her Right Club, which is her core group. And LIMOR, I'm sure, you know, you can't do coaching in person anymore. You can't work the networking rooms like you used to anymore. LIMOR's had to pivot in her business in order to obtain clients. And so just having that ability to be fluid and pivot when you need to. And of course, humility will drive that. So you absolutely need to be humble. You need to be real. You need some humility in order to be able to listen to what's going on around you in order to make those pivots and be open to that fluidity. Like ultimately, if you're flipping a house and you're just so set on doing this flip and it's going to go that way and it's not working out anymore, you know, what do you do at that point? Maybe the market changed and you're like, no, I'm going to sell this. I'm going to sell this. This is what I'm going to do. But if you're not humble enough to realize that, okay, this strategy isn't working, what can I do next? And then do that pivot. You know, if you're just too set in your ways, it's not going to work, because you don't have an open mind, you don't have open ears, and you're not willing to make a shift when you need to in your business. And anybody who's in real estate knows it's a really fluid business. So if you can't be fluid with it, you're just going to drown.
Wow, that is amazing. Now that brings me to my next question, Danielle. Describe one of your biggest failures and what lessons you learned from that.
Okay. One of my biggest failures, so many. There's a lot. Okay. One of them was, no, there's always, you know, anybody tells you they never failed in business, they're just lying and move on. Don't talk to them anymore.
Yeah.
But what I'm going to tell you, wow. Okay. So one was to work with people that were in my inner circle. So don't work with close family and friends. I won't get into that just for personal reasons, but actually I think I spoke about it at the Right Club in front of 200 people. But yeah, so, you know, be careful who you work with. That's number one, and who you partner with. But ultimately, probably my biggest failure is not failure. I don't want to say it's a failure, because I don't believe in failures. I don't. I believe in lessons. I call failures lessons. And so just trying to do it on my own for too long, I think, was probably the biggest lesson. My business has ramped up since I've opened the door to bringing other people in, instead of trying to control everything and have everything like, just under, like, just tight to me, and allowing others to bring their creativeness and their strengths to my organization and grow it. So it's been really, it's been a big change. So that was the biggest lesson for me, was done is better than perfect, which is one of the core things that got me through when I first started in 2013. That saying, I probably said that to myself for about 3 years, at least 4 times a day. So that was pretty core for me. And yeah, and really just bringing in the right people and trusting them, it's been amazing. So find the right team. I mean, they call it the dream team for a reason, but that was my biggest lesson. I don't want to call it a failure. It's not a failure.
Yeah. So if you could go back and change one thing, what would that be?
I would have allowed that to happen a lot sooner.
Okay. That is amazing. Sarah, what is, I'll read it. Describe one of your biggest failures and what lessons you learned from it.
Yeah, so I will add, and Danielle is 100% right. There is tons of mistakes I've made through, the 8 years that I've been doing this, and you learn from them. $20,000 mistakes, give or take. But the nice thing with real estate is it usually is forgivable at some point. You just hang on to it. But aside from that, I do want to talk about, if I look at failures, and again, I don't like the word failures. I think it's just realizations and things I would potentially do differently. Mm-hmm. I think that I got so consumed by the goal and the goal and the goal that I forgot to have the fun and the fun and the fun that goes with it along the way. And I think that's the piece that I did a little bit of it. And yes, I had a good life as I was still working, but man, I was working 50, 60-hour weeks. I mean, some jobs even more. And then I had the Right Club, the podcast, all the other things in addition to building a portfolio. And I'll tell you, some days I was working 15-hour days, and not to scare you guys, it's not necessarily on the management piece, but it's just on everything else, right? Reading, learning, and that can burn you out, but you don't necessarily realize it until you're on the other side. And then you look back and you're like, why am I doing this? And you've really got to make it fun. And I'll tell you, and I haven't really shared this, but COVID and having to stop was actually the best thing that's ever happened to me, because I actually learned how to stop. I learned how to slow down. I learned how to enjoy time with friends and my spouse, and and create that lifestyle that we were doing this whole thing for, not just getting to the goal and the goal and the goal. And my life is so much better now. I'm working 15 hours a week. I'm probably making more money than I used to working 15-hour days. But going back, I probably didn't need to burn myself out to that extreme for that long, because it actually took a toll on my health. And so I would probably say, looking back at it, I would have slowed down and not said yes to everything, being on every podcast, every all of that stuff, because it takes a toll. So
yeah, wow, that is amazing. How about you, Limo?
Before I jump into my answer, I just really want to commend Sarah. I want to say really a massive congratulations. And I think as investors and as women who have these massive goals and things we want to do and accomplish for ourselves, for our family, the legacy that we want to leave, and just really what we want to prove that we can make a difference doing in this world, it's really important to really focus on why you're doing it. And I think particularly as ladies, role modeling for other women that it is ultimately about the lifestyle that you're accomplishing and creating for yourself. So kudos to you on that. And it's something I know that a lot of the listeners here will probably take away from, because when you're starting, yeah, gals, you're going to be hustling, but it's all for something, and you've got to love on and enjoy the journey throughout the way. So the other thing that I think has been really interesting with what both Danielle and Sarah said is that it's really tough, and I will echo completely, to call something you've done a failure. I definitely do have an example here, but I think what was the biggest quote unquote failure actually became one of the greatest bouncing off points. And for me, I would say the biggest failure was actually a hard money lending deal that I had done. So for those of you who aren't familiar, hard money lending is basically when you lend somebody money with kind of a promise on a promissory note that they're going to pay you back. And this was $40,000 to someone who had lent money before, and it was all shiny and attractive because there was an 18% return. And I was like, woohoo, this is so exciting, you know, passive money. But in reality, when you're not registered on title, it's very challenging if something goes sideways, something happens to the borrower. In this particular instance, there was a market issue that it had a significant drop. The project took longer than expected. And very long story short, that was $40,000 that I never got back, and I had to write off with my accountant. And so, you know, especially when you're starting out and you've been working really hard for your money, whether that's in your job or in real estate or through other side hustling, you know, losing money is never fun. And I know it happens to a lot of real estate investors along the way, but the biggest lesson that really came from me is that if I'm going to be using my hard-earned money in an investment, is I have to do it in a way where not only do I get strong returns, but I have a tremendous amount of security. And that's really one of the very early lessons that led me down the path of private lending. And it's great because a lot of my clients that I work with today to this point, sometimes they'll come up with a hard money lending opportunity and they'll say, oh, but it's an 18 or 20% return. And I can share a story. And to be honest, it's really important that not only is it a failure or a mistake that I learned from, but it allowed me to carve a really special niche in the Canadian and US market as well as the private lending queen. And it's completely changed and evolved my business. So, you know, I know, Joseline, you said, you know, would you go back and change something or do something different? Honestly, with all the magic and everything that's happened and transpired as a result of that mistake or quote unquote failure, I actually wouldn't change a thing because I completely carved out a really neat area of focus, and it allows me to truly impart very secure strategies for myself and the investors. And I would not be where I am today if I hadn't made that mistake.
Wow. I think what I'm taking away from all three of you ladies is that it's okay to fail, and it doesn't have to be perfect. And in the end, we actually fail forward. You fail and you learn something. And when I say fail, I don't mean like fail the bad word, but it's also a good thing. Like I really have enjoyed some of my moments where I failed. When I look back, I think one of mine is not involving a mentor or coach earlier. So I was doing things without really knowing what I'm doing. And I think I wasted a good 5 years where we could have bought properties faster and reduced a lot of our capital. But when I look back, I think I learned something also, that having a mentor and a coach is very important. So I really, really enjoyed having this discussion. So now I'll go back to you, Limo. What do you think makes a successful real estate investor?
So I think a lot of the things that we've shared already about how we got to where we are, jump into that. But I would say, you know, first thing is really make sure you know what you want. There's lots of different strategies. There's ones that are active. There's ones that are passive. There's one where you put in sweat equity. There's ones where you put in capital. And I see all too often investors kind of getting started or going down a path or having done a project. And then when we're having a discussion after the fact, they're like, I actually don't even know why I did that strategy. Like someone told me about it, or it sounded sexy and all shiny. But I would say number one, definitely make sure you know why you're going down the path that you're embarking on, because there's so many different options. And the second one, so pertinent in my opinion, is learn from other people. Have mentors. I can't stress it enough. Like it's going to take you, you know, 50 years and cost you a lot of money instead of just really investing in yourself and having someone to support you to ensure that you do things correctly and you don't waste a lot of time and money along the way.
Absolutely, absolutely. Danielle, what do you think makes a successful real estate investor?
I really think somebody with an open mind, who is committed. I mean, ultimately, and it comes back to that belief that I was telling earlier that really drives you. So You can't be committed without the belief that you're going to get there and you're going to be successful. So, but you need to be committed. You need to be committed to yourself. You need to be committed to the process, and you need to be committed to finishing it. And ultimately, if you're not committed, you're not going to see it through to the end. And that's really what you need to have. Like, you need to be able to grind through it to see it through to the end in order to be a good real estate investor, and understand that you're going to have to, when I say commit to yourself, exactly that. Like, you have to invest into yourself with the knowledge, and reach out to your network. Go do, you know, networking events. People are like, Danielle, you're always in a networking room. Yeah, that's how I built my business, because I learned. And you know what? Like, if you want to fast track and get it done right, you have to commit to yourself, not just to the process and to, you know, to reaching your goal, but you have to commit to yourself to develop as a real estate investor. Ultimately, when I first decided to be a full-time real estate investor, I committed 2 years of my life, and I called it going back to school. And I did exactly that. I got a coach. I went down to the States. I was in the States at least once every 2 months for a 5 to 7 day conference. And I learned a lot. And I did all of that before I even started implementing. And so, but commit. I think the biggest thing is, if you want to be a really good real estate investor, is you have to commit to yourself and to the process.
Absolutely, absolutely. Sarah, what do you think makes a successful real estate investor?
Yeah, so just to add to you know, not say exactly the same thing, but I do, you know, think that those were great answers. I think just staying unemotional, right? Like, these are investment properties. They're not properties we're going to live in. Just having that set of criteria, sticking with the set of criteria, and leaving your emotion out of it as much as possible. I think that is one thing. And then, you know, they say it's time in the market. It is time in the market. But have some patience, because right now what I'm seeing is some crazy nonsense with people overpaying dramatically on the MLS right now, with no concept of cash flow, where you're going to be paying for a tenant to live there $400, $500, $600 a month, potentially more. So, you know, if it's not in your criteria, set your criteria. Don't buy something that doesn't fit in your criteria. Be patient, but when the deal comes, you do have to take action, because things move really fast still in this market. And then I would just add, you know, build a solid team of people. You know, like your mortgage broker, your accountant, your bookkeeper, your trades. You know, those people are going to help you, and the stronger that they are, I think the stronger that you will be. You know, and get to your goals. And lastly, I would just say that's exactly it. Whatever your goals are, stick to that, focus on that, you know, make steps every single day, every single week, to get closer every day.
Absolutely. I love that. I love that. Now we're going to ask our last question, but before I get to my last question, I'm just going to remind everyone, if there are any questions, put them in the chat. That'll be our next section. We'll cover questions from the audience. Or you can unmute yourself and ask the question, but we prefer that you put them in the chat, and I will read them to the panelists. My last question today is, I know that also, like, I believe it was LIMOR that talked about investing in yourself. What is one way I invest in myself is I love reading, and I think that reading is the one way that connects you to knowledge that you wouldn't otherwise have access to. So what is one book that you've read that you feel that other female or male real estate investors should read? I'll start with you, Sarah.
So right now I'm reading one, and this lady was very inspirational on a podcast that it literally made me go and order her book like right away. And I don't know if anybody's, and this is not real estate specific, but it's Jamie Kern Lima, and she wrote a book called Believe It, and she's the one that sold her cosmetic company, It Cosmetics, for 1.2 billion. And she talks about the drive and the passion, and like, her story is just so inspirational, because she had so many no's, and she just kept going and going and going. So super amazing book. I mean, she is to me such an inspiration. Like, her book is just, I don't know, it's just unbelievable the stuff that she's gone through to get to where she is today, to the point where now she's literally a billionaire. And so that's the book I enjoy right now. It's not real estate specific, but it's entrepreneurial, and it just gives us that opportunity to say, you know what, like, you're going to be faced with so many no's. You just got to keep believing yourself and keep moving forward, and and look where she's at now. So
love that. I think I'll check it out. Sounds like an amazing book to read. How about you, Daniela? What's one book that you've read that you feel that investors or anybody in business really should read?
Well, especially for business, actually, as the book that I read when I first started my journey was called The E-Myth by Michael Gerber. And it's all about systems. And it kind of highlights and follows McDonald's, which, by the way, I worked at McDonald's for just under 2 years. It was my very first job that I got just before I turned 16. And I actually loved it because of the systems. Everything made sense to me. I'm a very logical thinker, and I need things to make sense. And people perform when they know what they need to do, when they understand the process. They can perform because they know what they need to do. There's no guessing. And so that gives them the confidence that they need in order to execute what you want them to execute. Now, when you go into business, what people don't tell you is everybody thinks getting into business is sexy, and everybody on the stage here will tell you, no, it's not sexy. It's hard work. And if you read the book, The E-Myth by Michael Gerber, he'll tell you how to simplify it through systems. And I'm a systems girl. Like, everybody knows this about me. I'm very systematic. Anytime I do anything, if I know I'm going to do it twice, I diarize and I take notes and I build a system around it. This is what we need to do. And, I'll template emails and that sort of thing. And it's time management, because when you are an entrepreneur and when you are a business owner, your time all of a sudden seems to diminish very quickly. Yeah. And so if you can systematize your business, you can not only give confidence to the people that you're delegating some of the workload to by giving them a system to follow, but you're also going to be better at time management for yourself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'll be checking out that one as well. I think one of the reasons why I asked this question is so I can learn, who are you learning from? Limo, what is the one book you've read that you feel everybody should read too?
Well, Joseline, I love that you asked these questions, and I've actually been writing down all the different books, because, one of the things that I think is so important that, as a female entrepreneur, as a real estate investor, we have to all realize what we are doing is absolutely not the norm. And the way that we're able to have the vision, the tenacity, the determination to get there is because we stand guard at the door of our minds. We are all unanimously and together really ensuring that our mind's not being filled with negativity. We're listening to podcasts, we're reading lots of books, we're hanging out with one another, like Sarah said. And so I'm really glad that you asked this question. The book that I want to share with everyone here that I read probably about 6 months ago that had a monumental impact on me was a book called Who Not How. So the book's called Who Not How, and it's by Dr. Benjamin Hardy. There you go. Thank you, Sarah. I have my copy beside me, but that's awesome. And this book completely rewired my mind in thinking about not only teams, but support in your life, because so many of us are trying to do so many things in our life. I mean, especially as women with partners and kids and mothers and daughters and all of those kinds of extra roles that we end up taking on. This book is really the premise that you don't have to figure out how to do all the millions of things that you need to do. You need to figure out who you can bring in to either outsource or get support. And I will tell you, I went on a hiring spree. As soon as I read that book, I think I hired like 6 people within the next month. And I challenged myself at the end of reading the book, and I made a list of 30 people. And of course, I wasn't going to hire all of them, but to try to train my mind to really implement what I was learning, who are 30 people who could play a supporting role. And this is a message and an approach to business that I think all women should really learn to embody, and I will be carrying with me definitely for the rest of my life.
Wow. Now I will check that one out as well. Thank you very much, ladies, for being here. Now we're just gonna take a few questions, and I just want to remind everyone, put your questions in the chat box, and we'll go from there. We have a giveaway. And these are some of my favorite books. The reason I chose these books, The Millionaire Real Estate Investor, for example, is because I know that a lot of people want to know how to invest in real estate. And I feel like this book has all the answers. You don't have to follow, like, I don't know, gurus or pay $50,000 in like guru mentorship. I feel like if you get this book and read it, you have the basics of how to start. You have the basics of how to find your first investment property. The Only Woman in the Room is also one of my favorite books because I can read stories of other women who are doing what we do every day and kind of learn from what their story has been or what their path has looked like. So we will give away these books to 2 attendees tonight, and these attendees will be randomly selected. I'm not doing it, my team will do it, and they will let me know who of the, I think we have about 60 people on this webinar tonight. So my team will let me know who are the 2 people that they randomly selected that won these 2 books. So now it's time for questions. Here in the chat box, I do have a question for LIMOR. LIMOR, the question is, what were the signs? I guess this person is looking back at the $40,000 that you lost in private lending. What were the signs that the $40,000 was not a good investment? Do you stay away from all promissory notes now?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and thank you for asking that. So to be 100% perfectly clear, where I lost the money was not private lending. Private lending is the answer and the solution to circumvent some of the challenges. And to be honest, I look back on that so many times. I mean, looking for some clues, there was a real estate investor, the gentleman that I lent the money to. He'd had quite a bit of experience in real estate. He was a contractor handyman, so he had the skills to be able to do it. This was the second time I loaned him money. So the first time I loaned him money was just a little bit more than that. And this person was absolutely impeccable. They had an action plan. They had quotes. They took pictures as the project progressed. They were communicating beautifully. I mean, honestly, the first time around that I worked with this gentleman, it was like a picture perfect opportunity, and he couldn't have done it any better the first time around. And so then when he reached out a second time around, I was like, yeah, sure, you've already got a proven track record. But the second time around, the market took a bit of a dive. There were more challenges with the renovation. It took longer than expected. And it's one of the challenges associated with a strategy that inherently has a lot of risk. And I'm not talking about the strategy of hard money lending, although there's definitely a lot of risk, is that when somebody is flipping a property for the purpose of being able to make some renovations, being able to sell it at a profit, there's inherently a lot of elements and factors of risk. It can take longer than expected. There can be more issues behind the walls. The market can drop. And it just so happened that all of those things really fell together or coupled together at that point in time. I did eventually get myself registered as a lien on title, but I was absolutely behind other mortgages. They ended up falling behind on the other mortgage. There was the first mortgage actually ended up going through foreclosure, but because the market had actually dropped significantly at that point in time, they could barely get all of their money back. So that's why I think it's really important, and to ensure you've got a lot of security. And I've looked at that so many times. So I'm glad you asked that question, because it's a question I've asked of myself, and we all need to when something doesn't quite go right. It's like, was there a warning sign? Is there something I could have seen? And ultimately, I would say that the warning sign or the mistake was really not truly fully understanding the pros and the cons of the strategy that I was involved in.
Wow. So we have a question on Instagram because we're live there too. And the question is, what cities are you ladies investing in?
Who wants to go first?
Danielle, you can go first.
Well, since I've changed my strategy, for those that follow me, you know that I've typically stayed closer to home to do flips. But now that I'm doing simply acquisitions, I've gone to markets that are lower price points, purchase price points, and stronger rent values. So now I'm up north, I'm out east in Cornwall. We're looking at Kingston, I'm in Sudbury, I've looked at Windsor, not really pulled the trigger there. It's a bit of a competitive market, so I haven't done too much there. Sarnia, I've also looked at. Almost bought a triplex there, not yet, but typically the areas that I'm looking for are lower price points with stronger rent values that are supported by industry. Now, having gone up north, I've looked at even smaller and even east, so I've gone west of Ottawa as well in a couple of markets out there. I put an offer on an 18 unit out there, and they're really good. They're good markets. If you find a market that is, but here's the thing, just be careful. There was a couple of times I've been approached with deals up north, and I've said no, even though the numbers were brilliant. And the reason why I said no, you just got to be careful when you're going to markets that you don't know or don't understand. I did my research, I looked at it, and you know, I think 4,000 people was the amount, the population, and there really just was one business that was the main industry there. And so if there's a downturn in the market, or if that industry tanks, something happens, what's going to happen to your properties? And so you got to make sure that there's the market there is stable, the economy is stable, and you know, if you're dealing with, like, Sudbury is a little bit of a transient town, so it's a little bit of a higher risk in my opinion, because there's a lot of people that come and go. You got students that come and go, there's the minors that come and go. So when you're dealing with transient towns, it's not my favorite, but the numbers are good, and it's a bigger economy. So I'm there, but you just got to be careful when you go into certain markets. But typically I'm looking at sub-markets now.
Sarah.
Yeah, so for me, I mean, the last two deals I've done, one in February and literally one 3 weeks ago, were actually both in the Kawarthas. And they were both land deals. One is going to be, we're building some townhouses with another investor that has a lot of experience I've partnered with as well. And then the most recent one is 5 acres of waterfront land, and we are going to build a resort with 15 cottages. I'm going to theme them all so they're all different. Yeah. It's going to be a fun project. And the really cool thing is, you know, Matt's parents, they grew up poor, and they you know, don't have anything, so this is going to be their retirement. So they're going to sell their house, we're going to build them a house on the resort, and they're going to manage, and we're going to give them a little salary, and they're so excited because this is like their dream come true. So that's really cool. You know, aside, and I'm still looking in the Kawarthas. I think it's a great opportunity. I'll probably end up moving there at some point. You know, other than that, Hamilton, Burlington, Brantford are probably, you know, like, that's where I have the rest of my stuff. But, you know, submarkets are still good. But I'll tell you, submarkets are good. But if you've got 20 offers on a house and all of a sudden you're like way overpriced and you're not going to be able to do the strategy, that, you know, that doesn't work either. So I think it's not necessarily where. I think the fundamentals need to be there, like Danielle said. You know, but like, where is the strategy going to work as well? And if that strategy is not going to work by, you know, paying these crazy MLS prices, then maybe, you know, try to find some off-market opportunities. I mean, one of the 2 last deals I've done was contacting realtors and seeing what else they had coming up, and we just got super lucky with this one, and it wasn't even on the market, and we got it for like a crazy good price, because literally it was, hey, are you interested in selling? She went back to her clients that were kind of talking to her, and then they, you know, just ended up selling from there, and we purchased it, and we've got some great things coming there. Like, that's going to be likely a slam dunk deal.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that. And I love that finding off-market deals is where value is. Do you know how many times I have like a great deal and I'm like, who do I give it to? You know? So it's just like connecting with people who are in the market, who are active, who are finding deals, who are buying, who can analyze the deal for you. Because I love what you said earlier, Sarah, that it's not about timing the market, it's about time in the market. A great deal today is a great deal tomorrow, is a great deal forever. So long as you can find that, you know your strategy, you know your numbers, and you know your exit strategy. And if all of that works, then that is a deal. I really love that. I really love that. Another question here that we have is, I see that some of the people in real estate, like Joseline in this panel, are both real estate agents and investors. What are the different, I'm just gonna scroll up. I see that people are both real estate agents and investors. What are the differences between the two jobs, and how do you juggle between one and the other? Have you been agent or investor first? So I guess this question is directed towards me. I actually love both, and I was an investor before I became a realtor. So my husband and I were buying investment properties while I had my government job, and we just had enough. And I really love finding off-market deals. That's how it all started. I had a mentor who was teaching me everything about finding off-market deals. And I was saying, if I can find off-market deals for me, I can find off-market deals for my friends and family. Why can't I just make this a career? And I really love doing both jobs. So I became an investor before I became an agent. And I knew that there's a lack of agents out there who understand what we do. Like, it's not every agent who will understand your numbers, who will understand exactly what you're looking for as an investor. So because I saw that there's a gap there, that's why I decided to become an agent. In terms of juggling both jobs, sometimes it doesn't even feel like I'm juggling any two jobs, because it's just like I'm selling properties, but then I see one that I like, and then I talk to my husband, and then we buy it, and then he's gonna manage the project. It just feels like I love it so much, and I'm very passionate about it. So it doesn't feel like I'm doing two different jobs. It just feels like, it feels like a lifestyle, so to speak. It feels like something I could do forever and never retire from. And yeah, how about you, Danielle? I know you're an agent as well, and you're an investor. So let's talk about you.
Yeah, well, anybody who knows me knows that my agent license is, again, just a tool in my investor toolbox. So to answer the question, I was an investor first. My coaches in the States convinced me to get my license for a number of reasons, just, again, because it's a tool in your toolbox. And so when I was looking for deals, and when I first started, I was looking for deals on MLS. It's been a long time since I've actually bought a deal off of MLS. That 18 unit actually was a deal on the MLS, and I didn't get it because investors can't typically get property at the prices that we would want them on MLS. But in any event, at the time when I was new, I did a lot of sifting and searching on the MLS, and there wasn't as much competition even back then. You know, back in 2014, 2015. 2015, I bought my first flip. So when the reason why I got my license is a couple of reasons. One is so that I could have access to the MLS. That way I could do my own comps and I could see what was for sale. That was number one. Number two is because I wanted access to the properties. So for any investor out there that tries to coordinate with an agent to try to get into a property, like, how often is it, like, by the time you coordinate the two schedules to get into the property, well, somebody else has an offer on it and it's gone. So, well, that was before the whole holding offers thing was happening. So it was really hard, because when there's a really good deal, it will go within a day. And that was it back then. They weren't holding offers. Like I said, this was 2014, 2015. So deals were just flying off of MLS. So that was another reason why I got my license. The third reason was for instant rapport. So I could call an agent and say, hey, this is Danielle from eXp Realty. And then all of a sudden, Joseline's like, oh, hey, how's it going? Because it's realtor to realtor. If anybody knows anything, is realtors don't like investors, and investors don't tend to like realtors. And so it doesn't work very well. It's like, hey, Joseline, this is Danielle. I'm an investor. You're like, huh, okay. So it's a different conversation. So it was to build rapport. And lastly was because if ever, at the time, I was thinking of doing some wholesaling. And so for my flipping business, to find leads for my flipping business. And my coach said, well, if you find a deal that doesn't fit your business, you could, as an agent, you could refer that to, if they're motivated to sell, maybe they're not motivated to come down to your price, because flippers typically need to have a bigger spread, which is a lower purchase price. But if they're motivated to sell, you could refer that to an agent and have 25% of his commission. I was like, dang, okay, yeah, you know what?
Yeah.
I'm down for that. So it was a way to monetize potential leads that I couldn't capitalize on. So for those 4 reasons, I became an agent. I'm not a practicing agent. I have done it, but I'm very selective, and typically I'll refer. So, and actually I'm co-listing a deal right now. I referred it to another trusted agent. We're actually co-listing at 50-50, but typically I don't work as an agent.
Nice, nice, nice. Yeah, I think that one of the things you mentioned was access to data. That was one of the reasons why I got my license as well. Yeah. Now, since you and I, Danielle, answered the last question, so we'll have Sarah and Limo answer the next. The question is it better to hire a coach or a mentor or partner with someone in the industry if you're new to real estate investing? What's better, hiring somebody or partnering with them?
Who are you asking? LIMOR, do you want to answer first? I feel like you didn't answer the last one.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, I mean, this is my opinion only, but I think it's absolutely always better to hire a mentor, someone who can really be third party, unbiased, looking out for you, really supporting you and ensuring that you are successful. I was actually on a call just a couple weeks ago with a gentleman who, you know, had an opportunity to work with a very seasoned investor. He actually quit his job, moved to the other side of the country, worked with them. They did a lot together over a year-long period. He really hustled and did everything he possibly could. And then about a year into really working together, realized that there were some challenges that he didn't know about at the business. Because he was a rookie, they didn't have ironclad contracts. And, you know, he was on schedule to make a lot of money, but because the contracts and the paperwork weren't there, because this other investor clearly didn't have the highest level of integrity, this guy basically got some good experience, but no money for an entire year plus of his life. So, you know, it's one of the things that has really helped me is having mentors and coaches who can really support you. And, you know, when you're looking for a mentor and a coach, you want to really understand what's been their experience, right? What have they accomplished? Do you want to accomplish the same things? And also really understanding what's their level of success rate and how do they help clients? So are they there just to answer your questions? Are they there to support you? You know, one of the things that I really pride myself about is when I work with clients in a one-to-one capacity for private lending, I have a 100% success rate of helping my clients. I am not done working with you until your money is placed and you are making money. So 100% mentors is what got me to where I am. And if you really are serious about ensuring that you succeed with whatever strategy it is, in my opinion, hands down, find the right coach, find the right mentor, someone you jive with, somebody who's done what you want to do, and it is by far the fastest way to get to where you want to go. And trust me, it's worth every dollar of investment because you'll get there faster. And a lot of times people don't think about how much money they're going to lose or mistakes they're going to make along the way.
Yeah. Yeah, Sarah, I know you had something to say. Can you answer that question quickly? And I have another one coming for you.
Yeah, sure. Here's the thing. So if you're going to do it by yourself, you're going to be active, you're going to want to do, you know, the work and the hustle and that kind of stuff. Hire the mentor, it'll cost you a lot less. However, I will say, if you know, and probably not anybody on this line, but if you know somebody that just is so busy, isn't really super interested, but wants their money to work for them, you know, it might be in that person's best interest to partner with somebody and be that passive partner. So I think it really depends on how, you know, you guys are like listening to this, how hands-on you want to be. If you want to be hands-on, you want to do it and you want to learn it and you're going to do it, the mentor will be cheaper. If you want to be passive, and you want to be part of a deal, but you want to be more hands-off and you want to do it here and there. I mean, again, weigh the pros and cons. I think they can go both ways.
Just to chime in one more quick thing, because really I specialize in the passive income, is that yes, there's an opportunity to just partner with someone, but make sure you know how to evaluate the deal and evaluate the opportunity. Just because an investor or a mortgage broker or a lawyer says to you, "Ooh, I have this great opportunity, you're going to make 15% return," unless you can truly evaluate the deal and see whether or not you're going to make that money, what are the pros, what are the cons, you're not equipped to be able to make that decision. And even being a passive investor, education is often required.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Joseline,
Yes.
I have to say something. I apologize.
No worries.
The ladies are 100% right, but what I will tell you is this: a mentor or a coach, they have your best interest. They're a third party. They're completely, unbiased, and they will help you through whatever. And they have your best interest at heart. If you're partnering with somebody, you don't know where their interests are aligned and what they're kind of protecting. And so, if you want to protect yourself, get a coach. 100%.
Yeah, that's true. And I agree with everything you've said. The moment I got a coach, like our experience in real estate just got 10 times faster, 10 times better, less the stress. So I definitely would recommend a mentor as soon as you can afford one, for sure. The question I was going to direct to Sarah is this: what is the best property to buy, single family or multifamily?
I mean, here's the thing. With single family, if you're going to convert it, that could work really well. And then you can set your own rents, right? I can't give you a specific answer. What I would say is there could be some multifamilies that do worse than single families and vice versa. So it depends. It goes back to the strategy. If you're taking a single family that's worth $700,000, but you're only going to rent it for $2,000, like I probably wouldn't do that deal. If you're taking a single family, you're going to make it a triplex or a duplex or something where you can generate the cash flow and refinance. That makes sense to me. If you're going to buy a current multifamily and you're going to inherit tenants that are horrible, not paying, the board is backed up 9 to 12 months right now, and paying $500 instead of $2,000 each, as an example. I mean, you got to know what you're getting into. So to me, there's no it's the deal itself. So take a look at the deal, figure out what your strategy is, your criteria. But I personally look at both, and now I'm looking at land and I'm building, opportunities that don't exist, which I think, again, it's more risk, but it's more reward. And this is why I partnered. Actually, I hired him as a mentor, and then I found this property. I'm like, come into the deal with me, and he's got a team like a builder and everything. So I don't think there's a perfect deal. Figure out what your criteria is, stick to that, and I would just say just careful in this market. On MLS.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm getting a few questions about how to connect. We have a link in the chat where you can, it's a calendar link where you can go and book a meeting. In there, you can select if you'd like to meet with Sarah, Danielle, or LIMOR, or myself, and then we'll follow up to make sure that meeting happens. Here I have a quick question for you, LIMOR. Somebody is asking, are you still running your real estate investing program? If so, how can they get more information? I guess I'm just going to say that the first way to start, I guess, would be to book a meeting, which would be in the chat, and then you can meet one-on-one with LIMOR. LIMOR, is there anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, anyone wanting to connect with me, Instagram, LIMOR_Markman is the best place to be able to connect with me. And I'm sure these gals are all active on Facebook and Instagram. Social media is the way of the world and definitely the fastest way to connect.
Absolutely, absolutely. Danielle, what's your handle on Instagram or Facebook?
So it's Facebook /Dani Chasson, DANICHIASSON. And I believe Instagram's at DaniChasson.com.
Okay. How about you, Sarah?
So I will say I'm not really on Facebook. So Instagram is Investor Sarah Larby, or you guys can just email me, which is sarah@sarahlarby.com.
Okay. The next question is, I feel like I am starting late, but I know it's never too late to start. Where's the best place to start, or where can I start from to get into the market? Who's gonna take this question? Maybe we'll say LIMOR.
Sure. Well, I mean, it definitely starts with where you are starting from. And I would say it definitely is never too late to start. And, I commend you for being here and wanting to learn and be curious. Some people are starting with not really a lot of money and more sweat equity. There's other people who are starting with, a lot of my investors that I end up working with in their late 40s, in their early 50s, have no experience with real estate, but they've got maybe $100,000 in their RSPs and they want to have their money work harder for them. So I would say definitely figure out A, where you are starting from and what you bring to the table, and B, what you're willing to be able to put in. So, you know, if you don't have a ton of money getting started, no problem, but you have to be willing to put in the time and the sweat equity to do some of the strategies where you may be a little bit more of the active partner.
Awesome, awesome. Danielle, do you have anything to add?
Well, I created my 2-day workshop for this specific reason, called Reverse Engineering Real Estate. What happens is, the reason why I started that workshop is because so many people went in, and as a speaker, and I get an hour time slot on stage and I speak about a certain strategy, I can't give you enough meat on the bones for you to be able to go out and know exactly what you need and how to do it in order to execute successfully. And so what happens is a lot of people go into these events and now these Zoom calls, and they go, okay, that's a great, you know, they see a shining object and, you know, squirrel this, squirrel that. It's like, oh, okay, I want to flip a house. Oh, I want to lend passively. And they don't really fully understand what's involved in that strategy and if it's the right strategy for them. So reverse engineering real estate really is to look at yourself first before you start looking at the strategy. The strategy is the last thing you really ought to be looking at. So you want to look at, one, what are your goals? What is your vision that LIMOR was talking about? What is it that you want to see? 2, what do you have to bring to the table? Like, what resources do you have? What kind of capital? Meaning time, money, equity, like what can you use other people's money? So equity, like in your home, and maybe in your network. And then you start looking at the strategy and matching up to that. And so I had a student that I helped out before she came to me. She decided to do a flip. She worked 40 hours a week downtown Toronto and did a flip in St. Catharines. So you can just imagine, excuse me, Niagara Falls. So you can just imagine what happened. She wasn't there to manage the contractors. And so it was just a terrible mess. And because she didn't have the proper guidance, she didn't have the proper contracts. And so I kind of guided her out of that mess, and she lost a bit of money on that. But what happened ultimately is not the fact that the whole flip went sideways, is that she went into the wrong strategy. So it wasn't the right strategy for her. So really, I think what you need to do is look at what your situation is, where do you want to go, and then match up the strategy. So it's really hard. Like, you can't, there's not one answer for everybody. It really has to be something that you kind of dial in one-on-one on.
Absolutely, absolutely. The next question is to do with connecting. If you don't have social media, just book the meeting and we will connect you with whoever you want to meet with. If you want to meet with Sarah, just book in the meeting, indicate that you want to meet with Sarah, and we will make sure that that happens. The last question here, and I think, Sarah, you can take it, is after you buy a few properties, how do you keep buying more if you can't qualify for mortgages?
I mean, definitely work with a good mortgage broker. But here's the thing: is let's just say you lose your T4 income. You know, commercial real estate investing, joint ventures. You know, working with private lenders and figuring out how to do that. There's other strategies. So, you know, obviously when you're starting, if you have a T4 job and you work with a good mortgage broker, they're probably going to help you scale accordingly. And you know, one of the mistakes I made was going directly to the bank, because not all banks are equal in what they look for and what they will allocate. So you're going to want to do it in a certain way and with certain lenders. And then you might go to B lenders, you know, trust companies, credit unions. You know, afterwards, you might decide this is the time to, you know, you have the experience, bring in a joint venture partner that is going to bring you the money and the financing ability. You bring the experience as an example at that point in time, and you can split it differently. Or you can get into mixed use, you can get into commercial. You know, there's so many opportunities that will open up. So, you know, this is part of you know, connect with us, you know, connect with each other. You know, networking groups aren't open right now, but this is a great opportunity to talk to other people, because you'll find out that, you know, many of us have multiple properties, and we've all done it though in a little bit of a different way. And you know, we're happy to share those stories. but you know, the way that I did it, the way that Danielle did it, or LIMOR, may not be the exact same way that you're going to do it based on your circumstances and your situation and where you're starting from. But I will tell you that the money piece is not hard to find. From a financing point of view, there are solutions. There, some people have a little bit cheaper solutions than others, but there's solutions for everything.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that you said to connect with us, because yes, we do have the we do have the resources and we've done it, but we also have the connections, right? Because we're in this market. I think one thing when I started is I was listening and following a lot of American investors, and what they were recommending had nothing to do with what's happening here locally. But the good thing about connecting with one of us is that we do have those resources, and those resources are local. So do connect with us and we'll be happy to help. So right now we just went over 7:30. We'll just answer any other, I'll follow up with any questions that we haven't answered, and we'll go from there. My team just messaged me to let me know who the winners are for the 2 books that we have here, and we will follow up to make sure that they get to them. So the first winner is Asler Wortham. Asler, congratulations. Hello. Congratulations. You won the book, The Only Woman in the Room. We will follow up with you to get information where to mail it. And congratulations. The next winner is Amanda Morrison.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, Amanda. So yeah, we will follow up with everyone and make sure that those books get to you. We do have a recording of this webinar. So if you would like to go back and revisit a few things that we talked about, that will be possible. We'll send it out maybe in the next day or so. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you so much, ladies, for coming. I've learned so much. I feel like
thank you, Joseline.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say, I feel like every time I spend time with one of you guys, like even if it's like a 5-minute conversation, I learned something new, and that was so true tonight. I learned more tonight than I've learned in the last couple weeks, couple days, spending time
Nice.
doing other things. So thank you so much for being here, and hope to connect again soon.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.